Hi everybody and welcome to my channel. In this episode I'm going to be talking about prison news. So on my laptop I've actually got an app on which tells you daily prison news, and I'm going to be doing something a little different in this episode just to see what you viewers think of it. So if you please let us know in the comments whether you want to see more videos like this or not, because these videos I can put on a few times a week, maybe it's Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, talking about what's happening in the prison news, but there will be no edits. So if there's any little mistakes along the way, forgive me. But like I say, I can do these a lot quicker because these videos I can maybe doing about 15 minutes, and the only edits I'll be doing is this green screen behind us. But like I've just mentioned, I'll not be editing this video because these type of videos, when you edit them, even a 15-minute video can take 2 hours to edit, to take out little points, put pictures in, different things like that. So I'm going to try a little something different today. But the headlines in today's news is police officer who raped and sexually assaulted child jailed for 26 years. So when I'm just looking down, I'm just obviously reading off my laptop. So Stephen Hardy worked for Manchester Police. A Manchester police officer has been sentenced to 26 years in prison for 20 offences, including multiple counts of rape and sexual assault on a child. Now, this is starting to become a familiar thing with the police. There's a lot of cases coming up where there's corrupt police officers and police officers getting charged of sexual offences. But again, this isn't discriminating the whole of the police force. This is just a small minority. But a lot of these obviously got into this job knowing fine well what they were going to do so they could get away with it. So I'll just read a little bit through it about Stephen Hardy, 46, was suspended from duty as a detective constable at Greater Manchester Police after his conviction in July. He was found guilty of the offences, which included 6 counts of rape, following a trial at Liverpool Crown Court. Judge Robert Trevor Jones said Hardy used his teenage victim, who attended the hearing with members of her family, as a puppet or sex object. Sentencing him earlier today, the judge said, "You have never shown one iota of remorse for your behaviour. The indictment reflects a highly calculated and cynical course of grooming behaviour." He added, "You have been a long-serving police officer. That is a career which will now inevitably end. You would have been well aware of the widespread and lasting trauma that victims of sexual abuse suffer, and yet you gave no thought to that, and that is an aggravating factor." So this happened, it was first reported in 2020, 3 years ago. So obviously he's been suspended, but it did, when I read something else, it says he won't be getting pay or his payout from the police. But in a statement read out to the court, the victim said the abuse had permanently affected her mental health and that she was not sure she would ever be able to fully trust members of law enforcement. So like I've just mentioned, the ones like this give the rest of the police force a bad name. And like I say, well, I've mentioned in other videos, people can say whatever they want about police, but obviously they're there for a reason, and they do protect the public, they do protect women, they do protect kids, and they do a brilliant job at protecting kids from child sex offenders. But obviously, some of these people like this, like David, what was the other one? Wayne Couzens and Carrick, was another 2 examples of police officers abusing the trust and giving the rest of the force a bad name. But his position in Greater Manchester Police Force has deeply affected me. This is what, She said, "I maintain a deep fear of authority figures, despite overcoming that fear to report these crimes." So obviously she just went on to report the crimes and then been handled appropriately by the Manchester Police, who then went on to convict this dangerous predator. But someone like this, who's supposed to be helping the public, keep them safe from predators, and he's actually a predator himself. But like I've mentioned, some of these, the likes of him, will have went into this job knowing fine well what they wanted. But this will probably not have been the first victim. There'll be many more that will come to light once they see that he's been convicted. Laura Nash, defendant, said her client continued to deny all offences and added that he would inevitably find prison harder than most due to his role in the police. So that sounds like, to me, like a bit of self-pity. Poor me, I'm going to get tortured in prison because I'm a police officer. But doing things like this, what do you expect when you land in prison? But you'll be straight on the protection wings in prison. But again, like I've done videos on other people or high-profile cases that's on the VP wings, the vulnerable prisoner wings in prison, doesn't mean one bit that will be protected, because sometimes the majority, when I've covered murders in prison, it's always happened on the VP wings. And for those of you that are watching who don't know what the VP wing is, a vulnerable prisoner is someone who's either in for a sex offence, or someone who's in protection, or someone who's vulnerable to attack, someone that could be disabled, maybe have learning difficulties. They'll all be put on different wings and protected from the general population. But people from the general population who are getting into drug debts land down and get put on protection, and they come into contact with people like this, and this is when they meet the prison justice, should we say. So the head of the Greater Manchester Police Professional Standards Branch, Detective Chief Superintendent Mike Allen, said, given Hardy contested the indictment he faced at the Crown Court, we were unable to proceed with hearing such matters within the regulated police disciplinary system. He was nevertheless suspended from GMP. Now that Hardy has been convicted, he will face disciplinary proceedings, and as the public would rightly expect, he will not be paid a wage by Greater Manchester Police during the time it takes for his case to be heard. So he's been sentenced to 26 years, which is rightly so. And this is the sort of sentences that they should be given out to these offenders, because more times, often than not, you see stuff like this, and the sentences are like less than 10 years. Yeah, but because he's a police officer, he's getting 26 years. But it should be the same for all these type of offenders. Violent offenders get massive sentences, so these sex offenders should get massive sentences too. It's only right. They're hurting people and scarring them for the rest of their lives. And most of the time, it's minors who's going to go on to suffer this for the rest of their lives, especially at the hands of someone that they thought they could actually trust. But moving on from this, I'll just cover some more news. So, on to the next one, what I was reading earlier on, is why is Barlinnie shutting down? So Barlinnie Prison, which is up in Glasgow, is a local prison for the Scottish inmates, where they go when they're waiting sentence or they're waiting to go to trial, which is nicknamed the Big House. So Barlinnie has had a massive name over the years as a dangerous prison. And I think the majority of people, even the English lads, Irish lads, they'll have all heard, or the Welsh lads as well, all have heard about Barlinnie. And I've heard about it because of the violence that's actually went on in there, because a lot of these Scottish prisoners are quite handy with knives, and especially up in Glasgow, they tend to run around with knives more so than guns, or so I'm led to believe, or what I've seen myself. So Scotland's largest prison is scheduled to close and be replaced with a larger facility. For more than 100 years, Barlinnie in Glasgow has housed some of the country's most dangerous inmates, as well as hundreds of less high-profile criminals serving out their sentences. In 2018, it was announced that the notorious jail is to be shut and replaced with a new fit-for-purpose facility, which would bring incarceration in line with 21st century standards. Now, it's a lot like a lot of the English prisons, old Victorian prisons that were built in the 1800s. They're no longer fit for purpose. They were built for one-man cells, and some of them, the majority of them are doubles, but I've heard some of them actually hold up to 3 prisoners. So why is it closing? Simply put, the prison is decades out of date. Barlinnie is a Victorian prison commissioned in 1882 and fully in use before the dawn of the 20th century. Always plagued with overcrowding, the jail's population is usually 50% over capacity, with 1,400 prisoners crammed within its walls when it was designed for 987. So there's nearly 500 prisoners more than what there should be, all doubled up, crammed into these little pads. And it's a bit like Durham Prison. You can put your arms out like that and touch the walls either side. and they expect two people to live in there. You've got your toilet in the middle of the floor, so you've got to go and use the toilet in front of your padmate, which is a very degrading thing to do. You get one bog roll a week. Bog roll is a loo roll. So you get one toilet roll a week, and you've got to go and ask the screws or get on your cell bell. I've run out of toilet paper. Can you please get us another one? More times than not, they'll forget about it because they'll go down the line, they'll answer another bell. And you're on your bell about 5 times asking for a toilet roll, which is very degrading when there should be more. Well, there should be dishing out more than one a week for 2 lads in a pad, making you go and beg so you can ask for more toilet roll. In 2020, an inspection found it to be not fit for purpose, but that date, plans had already been put in place to shut it down. So 3 years ago in the inspection, it's not fit for purpose. Imagine this was a dog shelter that was not fit for purpose. There would be public outcry. There would be people protesting outside of it to get the animals out and shut the place down. But because it's humans that's committed offences, they get left to the back of the queue. Doesn't matter about them, they've committed offences. No, that's not the case. If it's not fit for purpose, you shouldn't have human beings in there suffering in squalor. Yes, they got put in there through committing crimes, and people say if you commit the crime, do the time. But how can you do the time in somewhere that an inspection has said it's not fit for purpose? Would you put the dogs in there? No, you wouldn't. So why put lads and lasses in places like that that's not fit for purpose? But Barlinnie, I think, down here it's called wings or house blocks. Up in the Scottish prisons, I think it's called halls. Barlinnie's got a load of halls, and like I say, some of them is on remand, some of them is sentenced, and they've all mixed in. They've got high profile in with low profile prisoners. The building is to be replaced with a 1,200 capacity super jail, HMP Glasgow. Plans were announced in 2018 but have been slow to get off the ground. The Scottish Government's infrastructure plan of 2015 priced the 1,200 place building at £170 million, with construction starting in 2018, but it took longer than expected to secure a site. So I've just read not so long ago about all these immigrants coming over from France, and to stop them coming over, the British government has given France £500 million, and a prison like this is going to cost £170 million to build. But yet you can go and give France 500 billion just like that. 500 million, sorry, which is £500 million just like that. When you need to get the prison system sorted out in the UK, get rid of these old Victorian prisons, build super prisons where you can hold 2,000 inmates, so there's no overcrowding, give them all single cells, give them more training facilities, and it'll probably be a lot less reoffending. The Scottish Prison Service finally settled on a 54-acre plot at the former Proven Gas Works, 100 metres from the existing Barlinnie. Like most large-scale civil engineering projects in Scotland, apparently the date for the new building has slipped several times, which is not surprising. When it involves the government, everything normally goes to pot. Initially scheduled for this year, the opening was pushed back to 26. This has now been moved back to 2027. So for 7 years, the inmates of Barlinnie have to live in a building that's not fit for purpose. How do they justify that one? The budget has also changed, growing to 400 million at the last estimate. All down to money again. What's been said about the decision to close Barlinnie? Barlinnie Governor Mick Stoney did not mix his words last month when he talked about the need for a new prison, saying this prison can't last that much longer. The infrastructure fails constantly. At some point, there may be a catastrophic failure. By then, it's too late. We know that day is coming. A lot of my time is just trying to keep the prison functional. If dates like building and completion stretch further, then the risks get greater year on year. So that is the Governor, Mick Stoney from Barlinnie, who is also saying the prison can't last much longer. So at least the Governor is obviously backing it, and he can see, because he works in the prison, he's the head of the prison, he can see what a, excuse me language, shithole the place is, and it needs closing down. But I'll just quickly go back and see what other news we have. I've got enough time to do one more. So Doncaster prison escape foiled days after Daniel Khalif escaped from Wandsworth. Doncaster prison escape. An escape attempt by prisoners at Doncaster jail days after terror suspect Daniel Khalif fled a jail in London was foiled by officers, according to reports. 2 seconds, people. Inmates at HMP Moreland created a 16-metre rope using sheets, similar to the methods Khalif reportedly used to flee Wandsworth Prison, strapped to the underside of a food delivery van, sparking a nationwide manhunt. Officers discovered the makeshift rope in a communal area for prisoners last Friday, only 48 hours after Khalif escaped from prison. The Ministry of Justice told the prison service was investigating the escape attempt at Moreland and pledged that offenders would be punished. So this has just been an attempted escape, or they've only found the bed sheets. So I cannot imagine anyone really getting prosecuted for it, because there's that many people in the prison they couldn't just pinpoint it to, unless they've got CCTV footage of them stashing the bed sheets. But they could say it was used for something else. They were going to use it for chucking lines out the windows. There's a lot of things that they could get out of it by, but I don't think they'll get convicted on trying to escape just for that. So Moreland is a Category C prison, and the well-known inmates who have been held at the prison are Nazim Hamed, the former boxing world champion, jailed for dangerous driving, and footballer Adam Johnson in prison for sexual activity with a child and grooming. Escapes from the secure prison estate are rare, with just 5 people absconding since 2017. Wow, 5 people have escaped since 2017. I'd say that's quite a lot, to be honest, especially with it being a Cat C prison, because it'll be quite hard getting over them barbed wire fences. Yeah, see if there's anything more on that. That's all it is. But I've covered 3 stories here that's in the news. There's a whole lot more, because like I've mentioned, I get daily news every day through to me app on my laptop. So if you all want me to cover it, like I've just done there, let us know in the comments, because this has just been a bit of a trial run. And if you do like the content, let us know, and I will do more. I can upload more of these, like I mentioned at the start of the video, because it only takes us the time to record it. I can change the green screen on the back, but because I don't have to do any editing, it's a lot easier and a lot simpler, and you get to hear a lot more stories. So I'll leave that one there for now, people. Remember, if you are liking the content, remember to go and like and subscribe. Enjoy the rest of your day, people. Take care.